Hi everyone, welcome to my report about the Zeroth Law of Thermodynamics. In this video, I am going to explain what this law means, how it's connected to temperature, thermal equilibrium, and the temperature scales that we use every day. So first, what is the Zeroth Law of Thermodynamics? It states that if two objects are in thermal equilibrium with a third object, then they are also in thermal equilibrium with each other. In simple terms, if two things are both the same temperature as something else, then they're also the same temperature as each other. This might sound basic, but it's actually a very important rule, because it helps us define what temperature really is. Now, let's talk about thermal equilibrium. Thermal equilibrium happens when no heat is flowing between two objects. This means both objects already have the same temperature. For example, if you leave a hot cup of coffee on the table, after some time, it cools down until it reaches the same temperature as the air around it. So, that's thermal equilibrium, when everything is balanced and no more heat is moving. Next, let's define temperature. Temperature simply measures how hot or cold something is. And the Zeroth law is the reason we can measure temperature correctly. When a thermometer is in thermal equilibrium with an object, it shows that object's temperature. That's how thermometers work. They rely on the principle of the Zeroth law. To measure temperature, we use different scales like Celsius, Fahrenheit, and Kelvin. All of these scales are based on the Zeroth law, since they depend on comparing temperatures between objects that are in equilibrium. So, here is an example to make it clearer. If a thermometer is in equilibrium with water, and the same thermometer is also in equilibrium with milk, then it means that water and milk are at the same temperature. This simple idea shows how temperature comparison works in real life. The Zeroth law basically connects temperature and thermal equilibrium. It's the reason we can define temperature properly and use scales like Celsius and Kelvin in science, medicine, and even in our daily lives. To wrap it up, the Zeroth law of thermodynamics is the foundation of all temperature measurement. It links thermal equilibrium and temperature, allowing us to measure heat consistently and accurately. Without this law, we wouldn't have a clear way to define or compare temperatures, and that's why the Zeroth law is such an important part of thermodynamics. And that's all for my report. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something new about the Zeroth law of thermodynamics. Bye bye!